Hello, everyone. Happy Black Music Month and happy Pride Month. Speaking of music, as always, obligatory self promotion. What if I ruled the world? Poems inspired by music. A lot of black artists in this book, including the mother of this woman on my shirt, Beyonce. And some poems are inspired by Beyonce in here. It's always linked down below and in the link tree. So there we go. And I don't have a Solange shirt or like a Destiny's Child shirt, so I was like, let me wear B. Yeah, focus on her a little bit better. So of course, I put her on my shirt because I'm talking about her mom. We're here to talk about Tina Knowles' memoir, Matriarch, and yeah. So I've talked about the genre. I talked about who it was by, and it was released April 22nd this year. So I'm gonna give her bio, even though we're gonna talk about her life. So anyway, although I will say I'm not going to give you all of her life story because I think you should read the book. I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. So I always say I'm going to skip around. I'm just going to read it verbatim probably. She's an American businesswoman. Tina Knowles is an American businesswoman, fashion designer, art collector, and activist. She was born Celestine and Beyonce. She did not like the name Celestine. I didn't put this in my notes, but that's why she wanted to go by Tina. She said people would say it wrong. I'm probably saying it wrong because her mom was Creole and her dad. I wonder, was her dad Creole? And he had a French accent. See, this is why you got to read the book so you can know. Um, I can't remember. I think he definitely had the French accent. I think he was Creole, but I think her mom was black. See, that's why you got to read the book, y'all, to double check my answers here. She was born in Galveston, Texas. She talks about Galveston a lot. She loved Galveston. Obviously, you love your hometown. Uh, her dad was a longshoreman, and her mom was a seamstress. She learned dressmaking at an early age. In 1986, she opened Headliners, a groundbreaking hair salon that became a multi-million-dollar phenomenon. In Houston, as a stylist designer and mother, she helped guide the day-to-day path of Destiny's Child, the music group comprised of Beyonce, Kelly Rowland, and Michelle Williams, to global commercial success. With her daughter Beyonce, she co-founded and ran the House of Darion, which her mom's maiden name was Darion. That's why she called it that. A clothing line named after her mother. Oh, it says that. Then she added Miss T in the line, which revitalized size inclusivity. Well, she did talk about that in her book. She wanted to have, everyone have beautiful clothes. It's gonna be a little bit of an aside because I don't think it. Yeah, it doesn't talk about it, but they had two things with House of Darion. They had like a teen version that was kind of like more affordable, but then they had like a high end part. So it was like a good mixture of high end clothes and regular clothes. And yeah, she talked about people who said, "Oh, I could never find my size in jeans, or I could never find Jesus look flattering until they found, House of Darion." So that was really interesting. And of course, she wanted to be size inclusive because she wanted everybody to feel beautiful. Uh, Recently, in 2024, she created the lines, helped create Sacred, her daughter Beyonce's hair care line. Her philanthropic profile portfolio. Can't read. That's not going to stop me because I can't read. Y'all know what I mean? Anyway, philanthropic portfolio includes the nonprofit performing arts organization Waco Theater, the Knowles Rowland Center for Youth in Houston, and Tina's Angels, her thriving mentor program for at for at-risk youth in South Central LA, which she does talk about in the book as well. Woo! Say that 5 times fast. She serves as a chairwoman of Be Good, a nonprofit dedicated to establishing economic equity through a wide array of initiatives. She's a grandmother of 6 and a matriarch to many. There we go. All right, now we're gonna get into synopsis. This synopsis is long. Let me see. I actually might try and skip around at this one. So the synopsis of the book is, it starts with "You are Celestine," she said. This is her mom talking to her. She squatted to push the hair off my face and pull legs off my pajama legs, like my sister and my grandmother. And there under the pecan tree, as she did countless times, the day my mother told me stories of the mothers and daughters that went before me. Um, it's kind of like a rehashing of like the biography. Okay, so it says that she's basically the daughter of iconic singer-songwriters Beyonce and Solange Knowles, and she's a bonus daughter of Kelly Rowland. hmm Is known the world over as a matriarch with a capital M, a determined, self-possessed, self-aware, and wise woman who raised and inspired some of the great artists of our time. But this story is about so much more than that. I guess I could have cut out that first paragraph. But anyway, this is what the synopsis is. Matriarch begins with a precocious, if unruly little girl growing up in the 1950s, in 1950s Galveston, the youngest of seven. I always forget how many siblings she had. She is in love with her world, the extended family on every other porch, and the sounds of Motown and the lapping beach always within earshot. But as the realities of race and the limitations of girlhood set in, she begins to dream of a world beyond. Her instincts and impulsive nature drive her far beyond the shores of Texas to discover the life awaiting her on the other side of childhood. That life's journey through grief and tragedy, creative and romantic risk and turmoil, the nurturing of superstar offspring and her own special gifts, is a remarkable story she shares with readers here. This is a page turning chronicle of a family love and heartbreak, of a loss and perseverance, and of the kind of creativity, audacity, and will it takes for a girl from Galveston to change the world. It's one it's one brilliant woman's intimate and revealing story and multi-generational family saga that carries within it the story of America and the wisdom that women pass to each other, mothers to daughters, across generations. That's a really great synopsis. Who wrote that? That was good. Okay, anyway. I'm going to talk about 10 interesting facts before I get into my pros and my cons. So, number one, she did not understand segregation when she was young. Um, she was like 5. I don't know um, if she was 5 at the beginning of Jim Crow or when she realized what Jim Crow was. And there was a rule that she couldn't go into a store if white people were in the store, and she was with her cousins. I want to say they were in I forgot where her dad was from. Her dad was from Louisiana, and her cousins were like, "Don't go in the store. The white people are in there." Like the white kids were in there, and the store owner was like, she opened the door, and the store owner was like, "You need to go to the back. You need to go back outside." And she like realized in that moment, like, "Oh my gosh, this is different for us. This is not like how we're supposed to be." And there was another story of her on the bus with her older sister, and I guess she was a really light skinned, whitish looking child, and her sister, I don't know if she was dark skinned. I don't. So she might have been darker than her, basically. And so she didn't understand why they had to go to the back of the bus versus the front. And when she tried to go to the front, her sister had to come and drag her back. And this white lady was like, "Oh, her mom would be upset if she saw how you're treating her." And her sister was like, "We have the same mom." And then the white lady was like, eh. And I think Tina said she was also blondish or honey blonde as a child. So that was, and every kid sometimes from the same family look different. So there's that too. So that was another incident when she realized, like, she knew about segregation. And so originally, Destiny's Child was called Girls Time, and they formed it like I want to say before 9 actually, but they were still playing with dolls at age 9 when they formed the group. So you're still playing with dolls, and now you're going to be in a singing group. So I thought that was crazy. Solange met Tupac at age 5 when Destiny's Child was in the studio. And she just ran off, and yeah, she met Tupac, and he was smoking. You know what he was smoking. And I thought that was really interesting. And she was talking their heads off, and Tupac loved it. He was, having fun. Thought that was an interesting story. Matthew taught the girls money management. He said, in order to make money, you need to tour and write your own songs, which the girls did, which I talked about in the Destiny's Child video. Destiny fulfilled. All three of them, Kelly, Beyonce, and Michelle, they all wrote. And then, of course, with touring, you get the money. Aaliyah and Destiny's Child were friends. Some of the Aaliyah fans need to hear that. And she was very humble. She was very sweet. Of course, Matthew and Tina were very protective of the girls. And, she was very humble. She did, she followed their rules. If you took the girls somewhere, she made sure she got them back in time. So I thought that was really sweet. And of course, they were very sad when she passed away. Uh, Record execs at, was it Columbia? I want to say it's Columbia. What's the label? Said Destiny's Child wouldn't go far with Tina as their stylist, but people would steal her looks. Shaking my head, of course, stealing from the black woman. She found out. So all these facts are just random. She found out from like reporters outside of an event for Beyonce that Matthew had a side baby. She had no idea. Like, and the craziest thing. So I talked about this in my short video that I would talk about their drama. So I'm gonna talk about it now. Basically, Matthew cheated the whole 33 years of their relationship, pretty much, of their marriage, not just relationship, their marriage. Even from the beginning, when she first had Beyonce, and she mentioned when she was gonna have Solange, which she did have Solange. He said that he was going out of town when she was supposed to go home with the baby. So she was gonna go home with Beyonce, who was like 5, and Solange is a newborn by herself. And she was like, "What are you talking about?" But he said, "Oh, I have a work thing, a work trip. I can't not go on this work trip, even though I just had a friggin' baby." So there's that, y'all. And then I have another tea involving Matthew. So she filed for divorce, but she had a secret affair with her separated husband Matthew for months after filing for divorce, even though they're supposed to not be together because they were trying to reconcile. But they were going around in secret and meeting up, and like they were sneaky links. I guess that's what you would call it now, a sneaky link. But, technically they were legally married, but they were like separated. And I thought that was interesting. So I put that in my facts. And the last fact I have was without self love, there is no matriarch, which is very true. If you don't love yourself, you can't, how can you give love to like everyone else? So yeah, I'm going to get into my pros and my cons of the book. I didn't write too many notes, but I'm going to wing it. So my number one pro, or I guess my first pro, is hearing her voice and hearing like her story. It was really great, and like you could tell that there were some parts where she was emotional, like when her parents were passed away. She was emotional about that, especially with her dad because she was not with him when he passed. So I thought that was very sad. Um, but she's a very great reader. Now let's get into the next point because it actually ties into with her voice. She's a great storyteller. She's very detailed. Uh, she paints a very good picture of like whatever you're seeing. So, for example, she accidentally got grease, like hot grease, on her leg, and she is very detailed. Unfortunately, and I could picture her injuries. It was not a pretty picture. But also when she would like go to the beach in Galveston, and just how they would walk, but their houses looked like what they would do and stuff. She was very detailed. I really loved that. Um, I feel like I was gonna say something else with the storytelling. This is a very random thing. This is another fun fact. They moved a lot. I I was like, damn, you moving again, girl, and again and again. But yeah, they moved a lot. So that was a very interesting part of the story. And this was when she was married to Matthew. They would move a lot, and then she would also separate from him. I want to say she separated once before the like she officially separated to get divorced. She moved into an apartment with Beyonce, Kelly, and Solange. and then they worked it out, and so it was kind of like a back and forth with them. And another thing that I really liked was the chapter names and the sections. So let me talk about that. When I talk about my favorite chapters, chapter 11 was called Golden Hour. Now, I can't go back and reread it because I don't have the book yet. Um, because I listened to the audiobook on my Libby app. But I think this is the chapter that she left home on a whim with her other like her older siblings that already lived in California. She decided to tag along with them and go to California. So I like that chapter because it's like she's finally breaking free of Galveston and living her own life. So that was an interesting one of the titles. This next title is kind of just self-explanatory. It's just chapter 19 headliners. Oh, I put 3 chapters, so then I'll have another interesting chapter. Chapter name. As an example, headliners is basically her getting her own salon and starting her own career. And at the time, she was thinking about leaving Matthew. I want to say it was like the first time because of course, there were a few different times, but she wasn't working when she had first had Beyonce, and so she was like, "I need to start working. I need to get myself together so I can leave this man." But actually, he ended up quitting his job to manage Destiny's Child. So then she kind of became the breadwinner. So it was like a little complicated for her at that time. And then the third favorite chapter, I had 3. Actually, I had a lot of favorite chapters. I really loved this book, y'all. This memoir. Chapter 14, Bread of Life. So I thought that was an interesting title, very Christian title. uh, Learning not to judge others that are less fortunate and help them. So Destiny's Child got this huge check, and she was like, "Oh, you should help the church with these church vans." And they learned like, okay, responsibility and like to tithe and to help others. So they bought the church vans and they got some used cars, but then the next because they wanted these luxury cars. Um, and she says that Beyonce didn't even drive the car very much that she bought eventually when she got more money. But yeah, so it just says to help the less fortunate and like, appreciate what you have basically. And she also had her own hair magazine, which is really cool. I tried to Google it. I could not find any evidence. But I would love if, somehow we could find some lost media. And then this is my least favorite chapter, but it does have an interesting name, chapter 12. Oh, and those chapters were chapter 11, 19, and 24 for my favorites. Chapter 12 was my least favorite chapter because it's called Return of the Prodigal Daughter. So she had to go back home and take care of her parents because they were sick and she wasn't married yet. So as the only single sibling, who wasn't married who didn't have kids, she was obligated pretty much to go back and help her family, and I did not like that. But as it is, daughters, most of the time it's always daughters, so I'm going to rant about that. Have to go back and help their families. And then my last pro was her reason for writing the story was basically to pass along her history and have something for her children because Beyonce in her dedication, prelude, it was one of those things. Prelude, I think it was the prelude where her Angie, who she also is, if you don't know, is Tina Knowles' niece, Angie Beyonce. It was she also helped raise, and then Kelly Rowland she helped raise. Um, so those are her bonus daughters, and then of course Beyonce and Solange. So everybody, all 4 of them said something special in the prelude. I don't have the book in front of me, so I can tell you if it's the prelude or not. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Um, and so Beyonce basically said something along the lines of, "I want to know your story," or something like that. And then it had Miss Tina thinking about it and being like, I do want to tell my story. I do have something that I want to do. I wish I had like typed out the words, but basically that's why she wrote the book. And I thought that was really cool. So now her kids and her grandkids and her great grandkids eventually and so on and so forth can know their history and know all about her. So I thought that was really cool. The cons I already talked about in my short video. You're not going to get too much drama about Destiny's Child, but you are going to get a ton of drama about Matthew Knowles and her relationship, at least in relation to each other. Now, whatever he did outside of her, she didn't really fool with, but yeah, it was a lot of juicy stuff for them too. So yeah, so not too much Destiny's Child drama, but I also understand it's not her story to tell. She's telling her life story, but she does, of course, have involvement with Destiny's Child. She was their stylist. She was motherly to them. You know, so of course she's gonna be involved, but she's not gonna spill their tea because it's her story. And then my overall opinion. I love learning about Miss Tina's life even before Destiny's Child formed. Um, and she's decide at the end of the book, she talks about how she doesn't want to be like a mom or a wife, just a mom or a wife. She wants to learn about her own stuff just to be Tina. I think she said Miss Tina because she's not a Mrs. anymore. She had two marriages actually, but they both didn't work out, unfortunately. So she just wants to learn herself by herself. She had a very intriguing but also challenging childhood growing up through segregation and integration, which she has some great stories about doing some sit ins with her older sister and other very sad um, dealing with racist cops and just racist white people in general. It's, of course, sad, but you know, it was that time and it's still dealing with those people now. She has had so many careers. She was a hairstylist. She was a regular stylist. Of course, the Destiny's Child, to Beyonce, to Solange. She was basically doing it all. She would help with hair, with makeup, with clothes. She did everything. She had her whole hair salon. Like she had a lot going on. She had so many careers and did things I had no idea she did because I had no idea she did that many things. Uh, she has had she has lived many exciting lives, and even with her challenges, she managed to get through them and become better. I highly recommend this book. Highly recommend it. I think it's worth a read to read, if not buy it. I will buy the book because I do want to see the pictures because I heard there were pictures, and I can imagine myself rereading this. She has a very interesting life story. I loved it. I will give it a 10 out of 10. Definitely worth the read. If I can read what I wrote, um, definitely gonna highly recommend it. Um, so I have a rant because she sacrificed so much as a mom and a daughter because her parents were older when they had her. I can't remember the exact age, but she was like 15 years in between her and her next oldest sister, I guess. I guess the one right above her. I think she was a surprise. I mean, after 15 years. Yeah, she's definitely a surprise. So, she had a lot of burdens placed on her as the youngest. And especially with no family, because then, of course, the older siblings had families and were married and all of that and were on their own. So here's how my rant goes. It's called Mothers and Daughters Sacrifices Rant. Okay, I kind of talked about this already, but I'm going to reread it. Miss Tina at the end of the book said she wanted to live her life for herself and not just as Mama Tina or a wife, and oh, I have a typo. How she had done so much for everyone else. And she did. Oh my gosh. That's why I gotta read the book because she did too much. But hey, she was super mom and super daughter. It reminds me of her going back home to help her parents because she was single. At first, I feel like the first few times she was, but then she ended up meeting Matthew, and they got married. And she was still, even though they're early in their marriage, she was still having to help with her parents, and how her parents' care was placed on her because she didn't have any kids. Um, I think a lot of daughters, even if they aren't the oldest, get burdened with helping their ailing parents just because they're women, which is so true. Instead of it being equally shared amongst the other siblings, which happens a lot. I've heard so many stories of women with like multiple sisters saying, my mom doted on my brother and all this stuff. And he doesn't do a thing to help her. Only us, the daughters that she treated like shit, help her. But her son that she doted on and put him above everyone else doesn't help her. So that is the case for many many families. I hate that she had to stop her dreams when she had many other siblings. She had six other siblings that could have helped as well. But because she was single, you know, she had to go help. But also, when she becomes a mother, she puts her children first before herself, like she did with her parents. And I wish women were treated. Oh, wait. I skipped a sentence. Oh, moms are still human beings with dreams and desires outside of motherhood. And I wish they were. And I wish women were treated that way. That way, though. I know parenthood is about sacrificing, but it's usually one sided sacrifice where the moms put in more effort. And I think daughters and mothers need to put up more boundaries about what they can and are willing to do. I really think we should. Women aren't just slaves for others, and I think more women are realizing marriage and families aren't beneficial to them or aren't rewarding to them. We keep painting this perfect picture painting of motherhood and marriage, but it's not as great as it seems if your partner isn't pulling their weight. Women often see I can't talk to parenthood as active, while men see it as passive for women to do. They could sit around doing nothing. But they could say, "Well, I was there." But just sitting around isn't parenting, and kids remember that. If you were just a couch dad, they're gonna remember that you were not interested in really getting to know them or loving them. So I think less women want the burden and responsibility of marriage and motherhood as they have from years before, because we see basically we're doing everything. Like there's a saying called single married women, single married mother, where the mom's just doing everything, but the dad is there, but he's not like an active participant. And so, reading her book, it made me think like so many women do this. They are they do everything for their parents, they do everything for their children, and they get very little in return, you know. And I feel like a lot of women, people talk about, oh, population going down, population going down. There's not really an incentive anymore. You can't afford the kids. The wife is doing everything. So, was the man there for? Sometimes. I won't say all the time because I don't want to make generalizations, even though I feel like it's a lot of women doing everything and men not pulling their weight. So it's like, it's expensive. You gotta do more of the work. You gotta work and you gotta come home and do more work. And some women said when they were married, they were doing so much. Like they were also doing stuff for the husband that when they got divorced, they were doing less stuff because they didn't have to take care of the husband too. So I feel like that's just crazy. But yeah, have you read Matriarch by Tina Knowles? Will you read Matriarch after my review? I think you should. Um, do you like Beyonce? Do you like Solange? Do you like Kelly Rowland? Oh, another thing. This is so random, but I was looking at some song credits, and Angie Beyonce has helped like with a lot of writing for Destiny's Child and Beyonce, and probably Solange too. And Solange has helped Beyonce write, so I can't imagine that Beyonce hasn't helped her. It's just really interesting how the family just they helping each other. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on the family, the Knowles family. And of course, and she does talk about when Beyonce and Jay Z first get married and all that, and the families joining. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you all next week.